Right, thanks for staying with us. International Relations Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor says she believes that Israel is ignoring the ICJ ruling to prevent the killing of Palestinians in Gaza. Pandor was referring to the latest attacks on hospitals and said it was now up to the international community to act. This week alone, the UN relief chief said there are continued disruptions to humanitarian aid in the form of food, water and other supplies to those in need in Gaza. Just yesterday, Israeli Defense Forces allegedly sent more notices in those displaced in Gaza to move down south to avoid attacks in the north. Let's get a sense of the current situation in Gaza with TRT World Correspondent in Gaza, Nezar Sadawi. A very good morning to you, Nezar. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, the ICJ ruling was received with a lot of celebration and a sense of achievement and pride, especially in South Africa. Has anything changed on the ground since that judgment?
Well, to be honest with you, not really. The situation on the ground remains as it is, meaning that the exchange of fire is still continuing between the two sides. The bombardment from the Israeli side, whether artillery or aerial, are both continuing very fiercely everywhere, not just in the north or in Khan Yunis, but it extends to even Rafah here, where we are. This is, of course, supposed to be the area that Israel continues to designate as safe. So all in all, nothing changed, not even in terms of the humanitarian conditions, by the way. There have been reportedly, more than 900 Palestinians have been killed since the ICJ ruling. That's just an example of how the situation did not change on the ground. We're talking about an average of 100 to 200 people killed every day.
And tell us more about the invasion that transpired, apparently affecting a hospital and resulting in Palestinians told to move in terms of their direction. What happened there?
Well, actually, weeks ago, the Israeli army expanded their operation to Khan Yunis, in the southern part of Gaza. Now, Khan Yunis, that very same city, used to be designated as safe. On October 13, 2023, the ground operation started in the north. At this time, Israel said or instructed Palestinians to flee their homes in the north and go anywhere below the Gaza Valley. That means central Gaza and southern Gaza, including, of course, Khan Yunis. And that's why Khan Yunis, which was already the second largest city in the enclave, has seen hundreds of thousands of internally displaced Palestinians. Now, after that, weeks ago, the Israeli army expanded their operation to Khan Yunis and said that they were focusing or intensifying their operation, militarily speaking, there. And they have. They started to infiltrate deeper and advance towards the heart of the city. A few days ago that happened. And of course, they surrounded Nasser Hospital, which was the second largest in the enclave. And after what happened in Gaza City months ago when they stormed Al-Shifa, Al-Shifa used to be the largest hospital in Gaza. After that, Nasser Hospital became the only remaining fully hospital in the entire strip. And now Nasser remains under siege. That and, of course, Al-Amal Hospital, which is, by the way, not affiliated with the government here or the local authorities. It's actually affiliated with the Palestine Red Crescent Society. So it's an NGO, humanitarian work. And both hospitals have been actually under siege for the past 12 days. Today is the 12th consecutive day where Nasser and Al-Amal both remain trapped, under siege from the Israeli troops in the heart of Khan Yunis. And more importantly, now it's not just about food any longer. It's also about medicinal supplies. It's about everything. They're short on staff, medicinal supplies, surgical tools, and, of course, food. The WHO was able to deliver one shipment of medicinal supplies to Nasser Hospital 48 hours ago, but after that, the food shipment that was supposed to get there was intercepted. And, of course, we understand that thousands of internally displaced Palestinians remain trapped inside Al-Amal Hospital. Yesterday, we were speaking to them. We saw a very significant statement saying that they literally had to bury 5 people in the main courtyard of the hospital because they are trapped inside under siege. They cannot move. And 4 Palestinians were killed inside, within the premises of Al-Amal, including, by the way, an employee. And those people were killed by the Israeli snipers.
How is the story being treated on the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, calling his organization's Palestinian Refugee Agency the backbone of Gaza aid, after several countries, of course, suspended funding over Israeli claims that 12 UNRWA staffers participated in the attacks?
Look, to be honest with you, for Palestinians, whether we're talking here politically or that stands of the position of Palestinian groups, or even the common residents here in the street, when we talk about UNRWA, it's not about whether this is a UN agency that can be, that can continue to provide the services or not. I mean, if you're going to ask whether if your question will be, is it possible for any other UN agency or any international humanitarian agency to replace UNRWA in terms of services? The answer would be yes. I mean, after all, it's just an agency, right? But for Palestinians, that's not it. That's not the only reason they're concerned about this. UNRWA is the only UN agency that was created specifically for Palestinians. It's not like the UNICEF or the UNESCO or any other UN body. UNRWA only serves Palestinians in 5 different regions, not just Gaza. Palestinians in Gaza, the occupied West Bank, those who are, Palestinian refugees in Syria, in Jordan, and in Lebanon, 5 regions. And it was established in 1949, 1 year after the Nakba. This is what Palestinians call it, the catastrophe. At the time, of course, they were displaced from the homes, the lands of origin in 1948, and they became refugees. That was the first time they became refugees. So for Palestinians, UNRWA represents the cause itself. It's not just about the aid. They understand that any other UN body or non-UN body can actually continue and provide services or food handouts for Palestinians who are needy. That's, the most needy people, or the internally displaced or the refugees, but it's not about humanitarian aid. This is political, and they understand, of course, that there have been several attempts in the past to, what, as Palestinians would say, to liquidate the Palestinian cause through, UNRWA, through the liquidation of UNRWA itself. Yeah. That's why it's significant. If UNRWA stops operating in Gaza, for example, where it used to provide services for more than 2 million Palestinians, if that happens, I mean, this file would be transferred maybe to UNHCR, and then for Palestinians, what would be the difference between any Palestinian refugee and any other refugee in the world? What will happen to the cause? That's the main issue here. And now we have started to actually see the impact of these budget cuts on the ground. The second round, where UNRWA was supposed to deliver food handouts last week, stopped because of these deficits. And these deficits started in 2017. It's not new. At the time, former President Donald Trump cut the U.S. funding to UNRWA, and then there have been accumulative deficits ever since. And now comes this, politically planned, as Palestinians would say. So that's why it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that in the midst of all of this, journalist casualties in the Israel-Gaza war, I mean, that journalists have not been spared. This war has taken a severe toll on journalists.
Of course.
Several killed, some even missing in this war. How has it impacted you as a member of the press?
Well, more than 120 journalists have been killed since 7th of October so far. And many were detained, many were tortured, many lost everything. Now, to start with, we have to keep in mind here that Palestinian journalists are just Palestinian people to begin with, meaning that they share the plight of their people in terms of losses. It's not just about the human loss. I mean, personally speaking, just like many Palestinians here, I lost people I know. I lost my home. It was bombed. I lost my car. By the way, this is a rental for work purposes. So it's about losses, you know. And the only difference, maybe let me put it this way, the only difference between journalists and non-journalists here in Gaza currently is the fact that we don't have the luxury of time. I mean, we are internally displaced ourselves. We have been forced to flee our offices, and then, you know, the several stations that we created in different areas in the Gaza Strip to cover from or to report from. But that is not the only issue here. I mean, an internally displaced Palestinian can, or are, you know, the people here are forced to stand in line for hours just to get some bread or water, for example. But that is a luxury I don't have. I don't have 4 or 5 hours to spare waiting in line to get into the bathroom, for example, or to get some bread. That is what makes it maybe twice as hard for Palestinian journalists when we're talking about being internally displaced. And of course, the risk is higher because we are on the move all the time. I mean, yes, everyone can be targeted here in Gaza. There is no safe place here. So it's risky for everyone. But when you move a lot, when you go to different areas, when you go to reports from areas that were just struck by the fighter jet, I mean, it makes it twice as risky.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You keep safe. Thank you for talking to us about the developments there on the ground. TRT World Correspondent in Gaza, Nezar Sadawi, just giving us a sense of the reality in the Israel-Gaza war.